And welcome to Hannity. And tonight, new fallout over Hillary Clinton's many missteps at last night's Commander-in-Chief forum. Clinton is being criticized for saying her vote in the Iraq war was a mistake. Imagine if you're the parent of one of the, 5,000 people that lost their lives. Take a look.
I think that the decision to go to war in Iraq was a mistake. And I have said that my voting to give President Bush that authority was, from my perspective, my mistake.
Clinton also promised voters that she'd never put U.S. troops on the ground in Iraq and Syria, flat out ignoring or simply not knowing the fact that thousands are actually already there. Watch this.
We are not putting ground troops into Iraq ever again, and we're not putting ground troops into Syria. We're going to defeat ISIS without committing American ground troops.
And the big whopper? Well, Clinton served up a new excuse about her private email server scandal. We're going to have a reaction to all of that later. But first, joining us now in studio, a rare in-studio appearance. Oh, how nice of you to grace us with your presence.
Oh, thank you.
The editor-in-chief, LifeZet.com, Fox News contributor, nationally syndicated radio host Laura Ingraham. All right, now, if I was the parent of one of, nearly 5,000 families that lost loved ones in Iraq, or maybe my son had his legs blown off, or maybe he was disfigured, or his arms are blown off, and I'm saying, here's the lady that voted to send me to war. We won Ramadi, Baghdad, Mosul, Fallujah, and Tikrit. Oh, but it was a mistake. But we can learn from it. It's imperative we learn. I would be apoplectic.
She's trying to appeal to the Bernie Sanders voters out there. Some of them, we know, are at least turning more favorably to Trump now, Sean. So she wants to peel those people away. And she knows that a lot of these Republicans who used to be with Bush are closer to her on some of these issues than Trump. So she's walking a tightrope here on what she thinks on foreign policy. She's trying to appeal to the Bernie people. And she's trying to get some of these Republicans to go over to her as well. And I think she's failing on both sides. I think she was terrible last night.
I thought it was a horrible night.
It was an awful appearance for her.
Could you imagine saying, well, we're not going to put troops on the ground, but they're already there.
Yeah, it's like, what if you're there? What do you think then? We are here.
Well, we're never going to put you there again. Yeah. Hello, I'm watching from here.
They're special operators.
But it's not funny because their lives are at risk. And not only that, pulling out of Iraq the way she did and Obama did created the opening, the vacuum for ISIS to rise, and with the financial resources.
And losing Mosul, and now taking back Mosul, and the pain and the suffering. They're finding mass graves in Iraq now, where ISIS just bulldozed bodies that either they hatcheted to death or shot. And that is also part of the legacy of leaving Iraq in this disastrous state. Look, I think hindsight's always 20/20. You can go back and say, gosh, this intelligence was wrong. All these countries had the wrong intelligence. I understand that, but I just think the thing that really came out of this appearance last night for me, Sean, was that she's just given up, I think, defending her record. She can't defend what has happened in the economy under Obama. She can't defend her foreign policy record. She's not really defending Benghazi. She's not defending anything that's happened in the Middle East.
Not one person died in Benghazi or Libya.
Yeah, she cannot defend the record. She can't really argue that things are going to get all that much better. She kept making these veiled references to the VA and, well, we're going to have better technology. Then are you sharing are you keeping your ideas a secret from Obama? You have all these great ideas and he's just not implementing them? I just think her argument for a better future is just not there. And all it is Trump's crazy, Trump's crazy, Trump's crazy. That's all she has to say.
That's all she has. Yeah. And if you look at Donald Trump, I mean, I think he's had the best 4 weeks of his campaign post-convention. Yeah. And that is, let's see, he went to Baton Rouge. I thought it was smart. I thought he looked presidential with the Mexican president. Side by side, good moment for him. His speech in Detroit, good moment for him. He's doing policy speech after policy speech. He's staying focused on message. If he continues to do it, these polls, I'll put them up on the screen in a minute, show that he's made a lot of progress in the last 3 weeks.
I think so. Nate Silver, who's been wrong about some things, but he's a very interesting analyst on these things. His polls plus average, which he looks at, he takes into account a lot of factors.
He was at 33 yesterday.
Yeah, and he was about 4 or 5 weeks ago, Sean, I think he was about 22%. He was really low. So he's definitely
At one point, he had Trump at 58%, so it fluctuates quite a bit.
Well, it has, but this has definitely been a better trajectory for him than for Hillary. And I think he has to keep reassuring people that if you want a job and you want a new economic opportunity, you're going to have more money in your pocket if Trump's president.
The economic statistics are...
Oh, they're devastating.
Devastating.
No.
And I give them out every night. I won't bore the audience here with it now, but lowest labor participation
Horrible.
rate since the 70s, lowest home ownership rate.
1 in 6 men out of work,
18 to 34 or incarcerated. 1 in 5 American families don't have one member of the family working.
Whose legacy is that? Are we still blaming George W. Bush for that? Are we still? Who are we blaming for that? This is the legacy of Obama and Clinton on foreign policy and the domestic economy. And Trump just has to go to the electorate and say, look, you might not like my unvarnished style. You might think I'm a little brash. I get that. I'm a New Yorker. But you can't think that this is going to get any better under Hillary Clinton.
She says she's going to continue it.
Yeah, well, that's all she can say.
Let me put up some poll numbers.
Yeah.
Here's a couple interesting things. I think there's 3 numbers to watch very closely. What percentage of the Republican vote Donald Trump's getting? He needs to go up among the base. I would argue those sabotaging him, we'll get to that in a minute, are having some impact. But here's what's interesting. If you look at this new national poll, Boston Herald, Franklin Pierce, Clinton, Hispanics, Trump, 36%. If you look at African Americans, Trump, 19. Now, that number may seem low, but when you compare it to the 4% that John McCain got and the 7% that Mitt Romney got, that is a game changer.
Oh, no. Well, if that's the number he ends up with, it's going to be a massive blowout for Trump. I mean, they have to get the black vote out for Hillary Clinton. Maybe they won't get the same numbers.
So she's going to run more
Obama.
Klan ads?
So it's going to be the Klan. You know, it's going to be they're picking on me because I'm a woman. That's the new desperation pass. Talk about
Chelsea
a Hail
Clinton
Mary pass. Oh, yeah. Well, they were saying this on Slate.com and all these liberal websites that she's really being unfairly treated because she's a woman. On the one hand, she's the smartest, most talented person. On the other hand, she's like a damsel in distress. That argument just doesn't hold water. How do you call yourself a feminist?
Let's look at the latest Quinnipiac swing state polling. Very close race. Florida dead even. North Carolina, Clinton, although there was a new poll out today that had Trump up by 3. Ohio, Trump up by 1. Look at Pennsylvania, 5-point race. And by the way, 3-point race in Wisconsin.
Iowa, he's up.
Iowa, he's up. It's close in Michigan, too. But this is tight.
Yeah, this is getting tighter.
Does this change?
I think it has to. Well, I think again, I would stay off the side issues that don't matter. I would stay on safety, security, and prosperity.
And change.
And we're going to change
37% upside down number on is the country heading in the wrong direction.
And also that tone that you mentioned he took in Detroit, Sean, where he shared his heart and he shared his...
That was interesting, right?
I think that was his best moment.
If you were Chris Matthews, you'd have a thrill up your leg right now.
Well, right, you know, it's no, I'm not going to go there.
Last question. So he has about 70-75% of the Republicans voting for him. Is there a cumulative impact of the establishment, the NRO, Wall Street Journal, the Glenn Becks of the world, George Wills of the world, that I would argue or even John Kasich's of the world, that are sabotaging the Trump campaign?
I think they're sitting on the sidelines hoping he loses, because then they can wag their finger and say, I told you, he's a vulgarian, he's not an elite like we are, we didn't go to the same schools, or wasn't as smart as we are. This is so tedious, Sean. We know what's at stake.
But they are having an impact, cumulatively,
they are
not
having
individually.
an impact, but I think as Trump continues to prove himself on the trail, they're going to look less and less relevant. I hope everybody reads my piece. Thank you for retweeting it yesterday.
I did yesterday, yeah.
Taking Ted Cruz seriously about voting your conscience. What that means for a conservative.
You know, look, to me, the issues are clear. I mean, on the Supreme Court, what a difference in who he'd appoint versus who she'd appoint. I like extreme vetting and listening to our top national security officials. I like building the wall for national security reasons, so we don't have 95 million Americans out of the labor force.
What's going to be left to conserve in 4 or 8 years? All the conservatives.
But there's more. But then there's Obamacare. Then there's energy indendence. All of these issues are significant.
Issues and significant, and the country will be better as a result. Put aside your personal hurt and all the put your big
whining
boy
and complaining
pants on
and picking up your
and do
toys.
what's best for your country. And I hope they do in the end. I don't want to malign them too much, although they've been kind of mean to you and me.
Yeah,
that's the way it goes, man.
Listen, you know what I'm saying? I said this to Jonah Goldberg and Glenn Beck. If she wins, based on your constant barrage of attacks and not telling the story of what the choice is, then they own her. They own her Supreme Court choices. They own what unvetted refugees do.
Don't complain about Hillary. They should just be honest, though, and come out for Hillary. Come out for Hillary. If Trump is the bad guy, they should actually explicitly come out and endorse Hillary Clinton.
All right, Laura, good to see you.
Good to see you, Sean.
Coming up next tonight, right here on Hannity.
The whole country saw how unfit she was at the town hall last night, where she refused to take accountability for her failed policies in the Middle East.
Donald Trump slamming Hillary Clinton as unfit to be president. This comes as new polls show that the race for the White House has tightened quite a bit. We'll check in with the original insurgent, Patrick J. Buchanan. He's here with reaction. And later, Hillary Clinton is coming up with new excuses about a private email server. We'll remind you about all the old excuses and all the lies she told you and much more on this busy edition of Hannity.
Hillary Clinton was emailing about the drone program, among many other extremely sensitive matters. This is yet more evidence that Clinton is unfit to be your commander-in-chief. By the way, the whole country saw how unfit she was at the town hall last night, where she refused to take accountability for her failed policies in the Middle East that have produced millions of refugees, unleashed horror of radical Islamic terrorism all over, and made us less safe than ever before.
Donald Trump earlier today taking a swipe at his Democratic opponent, Hillary Clinton. We are less than 9 weeks away from Election Day. Donald Trump has now narrowed the spread in the Real Clear Politics average national poll in a four-way race. Hillary Clinton only leading by 2.1% within the margin of error. Now Trump has cut that lead by nearly 5 percentage points in just the last month. Here with reaction, author of The Greatest Comeback, Patrick J. Buchanan, probably the original insurgent himself. How are you, sir?
Doing fine, Sean.
Two statements. I want to ask you if it's right. Did the establishment Republicans help create Trump, number one? And do you think the same establishment Republicans are trying to sabotage Trump?
Well, first off, the establishment Republicans did create Trumpism and Trump in this sense, Sean. They ignored the border issue when we first brought it up in 1991-92. They ignored the whole issue of trade and loss of manufacturing and jobs. And all of a sudden, when Donald Trump took these issues to the people, a huge explosion of support came. So in that sense, the Republican Party is paying the price of having ignored Trump. That's why they have Trump today. And frankly, one of the reasons Trump is being abandoned by a lot of the establishment is they don't want him in the White House, Sean. They don't want to give up their ideology and their ideas that really belong to another era.
There was a poll out today, and I found this interesting. Boston Herald, Franklin Pierce. Look, I think there's been a series of events that Donald Trump has showed real leadership. Going down to Baton Rouge, I thought worked out very well for him, especially Hillary never went. Obama had to follow his lead. Then he went to Mexico. I thought that was a presidential moment for him. In spite of being very tough on Mexico, he went there, and it turned out, I think, very well for him. Being tough doesn't necessarily mean it backfires on you. And I thought the town hall last night was particularly good as well, and his speech in Detroit was particularly good. What do you see as the main factors for the change in the polls in the last 4 weeks?
The main factor is this. Trump was behind because after the Republican convention and the Democratic convention, a lot of people who were looking to Trump and about to make up their minds had partly made up their minds that the guy is just not qualified. He doesn't have the temperament. We just can't vote for him to give him the nuclear weapons. And now they've seen Trump, and especially that trip to Mexico, where he stood up with the president of Mexico respectfully about the people of Mexico and the country, made a clear statement of American policy, and that was such a triumph for him, Sean. The president of Mexico just fired the finance minister who told him to meet with Trump. Yeah. So that was a clear-cut victory. And these other meetings, they show Trump, even if you disagree with how he handles it, he's a guy willing to take a risk. He wants to reach out. He does want to broaden the base. And so I think a lot of folks are rooting for him. And the second problem is Hillary Clinton's got, which I think her staff really realizes, now that she's taken questions from the press is coming back as Matt Lauer did.
She took 6 questions. 16 minutes, 6 questions, not one about her email scandal or about her lying. So, I mean, I'm not exactly calling that a press conference. Are you?
No, but what I will say is this. Matt Lauer asked her some tough questions about, about the drone strikes and things, and she got tough questions from the audience to the point. Sean, if the liberals this morning are attacking Matt Lauer, which they are, look, if you're attacking the referee, you've probably lost the fight.
I think that's well said. All right. So if you look at this Boston Herald Franklin Pierce poll, very favorable, somewhat favorable, Donald Trump, 25% of the African-American vote, 33% of the Latino vote. Go back to 2012. Mitt Romney got, what, 6-7% of the black vote? He has gone to great lengths to talk about how things have not gone well for the black community under Obama's policies. 58% increase black Americans on food stamps since Obama's been president. 20% increase black Americans out of the labor force. Then on top of that, they suffer the debt, the worst recovery since the 40s, the lowest home ownership rate in 51 years, lowest labor participation rate since the 70s. Do you think he can make inroads that we have not seen, say, since Ronald Reagan?
I certainly do. Look, McCain got beat 24-1 among African Americans. Obama got 95%, he got 4%. And as you mentioned, Mitt Romney got slaughtered. Now, if you can take the Republican vote among African Americans and raise it from that 7% or 4% to 12 or 14 or 16%, you're doing as well as any candidate, I think, since Richard Nixon's landslide. But secondarily, Sean, there are basically moderate and conservative Republicans who want to reach out to African Americans, who aren't anti-African American at all, who recognize their hellish problems that are some of them unique almost to that community, and we ought to address them. At the same time, you can have tough conservative policies on supporting cops and supporting law and order.
No,
so
here's what I don't
admire
understand.
what he's doing.
Here's what I don't understand. All right, so we know his Supreme Court justices. You can compare it to who Hillary would appoint. We know his position on listening to Comey and Clapper and Brennan and Mike McCall and General Allen and extreme vetting of refugees. I think that keeps America safe. We know his position on the wall. We know he wants to repeal and replace Obamacare. We know the guy wants energy independence. We know Hillary wants coal miners out of work and coal businesses out of business. Why are these guys from the Wall Street Journal, you know, the Brett Stevens of the world, why are the Jonah Goldbergs of the world, the Glenn Becks of the world? I don't think any one of them is hurting Trump, but I believe cumulatively it is pushing down the vote of Republicans, and he needs 90% of that base vote to win. Why do you think they are not looking at the issues that the way you and I are here?
Well, there's a number of issues which I would call the populist and nationalist issues, in addition to the conservative issues.
Trade?
Where the Wall Street Journal said, Wall Street Journal, you mean Bob Bartley, whom I knew well, was the editorial editor who wanted a 5-word constitutional amendment, there shall be open borders. Now, that's insanity, but that was a Wall Street Journal idea. Free trade, globalization, that is the Wall Street Journal's economic policy. In the Economist thing, it's one world. That's what it's all about. It is globalism versus Americanism, and Trump is an Americanist. And the third issue, let me tell you, Sean, is Trump has said, look, we're not going to go abroad looking for monsters to destroy or remake governments or overthrow them and try to make, try to create Vermont in the middle of the Hindu Kush. We're just not going to do it. And many of the neocons especially, are committed to this policy of remaking the world in their own image.
Well, wait a minute.
And so Trump is challenging them.
How many times are we going to send our national treasure, our men and women, to fight, bleed, die, and win Mosul, Ramadi, Fallujah, Tikrit, and Baghdad, only to have it ripped away from them? And then Hillary Clinton said, oops, it's a mistake that I sent you, and we've got to learn from the mistake. Well, tell that to the parents of that lost their sons and daughters there, or the guys that came back disfigured or had their legs blown off.
You couldn't be more right on this, Sean. Look, when Robert McNamara was behind sending all those guys to Vietnam, and people found out he really didn't believe in it, he didn't walk away from that. People put that to him year in and year out. They weren't remaking him Secretary of Defense and some of those other folks. Look, these people who have done this, they say we're wrong, we apologize, we're sorry. Fine. That does not mean you ought to be entrusted with the foreign policy of the United States again. Look at Mr. Wolfowitz over there. He's a neocon. He's going to vote for Hillary. This is an architect of the Iraq War.
Unbelievable. We cannot do this again to our brave men and women. If we're going to fight a war, you better have an objective, you better have an exit strategy, and you better win. We can't keep doing this. Pat, good to see you. Thank you.
Good to see you, my friend.
Coming up, Hillary Clinton makes yet another new excuse about a private email server. We're going to show you what she's now saying. We'll get reaction from Judge Jeanine Pirro and Ebony Williams also later tonight.
I have been somewhat heartened by the number of articles recently pointing out the quite disparate treatment of Trump and his campaign compared to ours.
Did I just hear what I think I heard? Hillary whining and complaining the liberal mainstream media, her biggest campaign contributor, is treating her unfairly? We'll check in with Larry Kudlow, Austin Goolsbee. They'll be here to react. That and more tonight on Hannity.
Classified material has a header which says top secret, secret, confidential. Nothing, and I will repeat this, and this is verified in the report by the Department of Justice. None of the emails sent or received by me had such a header.
Wow. By the way, you don't need classification. Does not always come with a header, and Hillary knows that. All right. Hillary Clinton last night making up yet another excuse about the classified emails being found on a private server. Earlier today, Donald Trump attacked Clinton over the use of this private server. Let's take a look.
Hostile foreign actors gained access to the personal email accounts of individuals with whom Clinton was in regular contact, and in doing so, obtained emails sent to or received by Clinton on her personal account. Hillary Clinton's staff deleted and digitally bleached, which is acid cleaned, her emails after receiving a congressional subpoena. She couldn't even remember whether she was trained or handling classified information, didn't remember anything about it. So if she really didn't remember, that's a problem. And if she did remember, that's a problem.
All right, now let's take a trip down memory lane. Let's look at Hillary's unfolding, ever-growing stories, fabrication, and we'll follow that up with Trey Gowdy grilling the FBI director about all the times she lied to you, the American people.
The laws and regulations in effect when I was Secretary of State allowed me to use my email for work. That is undisputed. It clearly wasn't the best choice. And I take responsibility for that decision. I thought it would be easier to carry just one device for my work and for my personal emails instead of two. I believe I have met all of my responsibilities, and the server will remain private. In order to be as cooperative as possible, we have turned over the server. They can do whatever they want to with the server to figure out what's there or what's not there.
Secretary Clinton said there was nothing marked classified on her emails either sent or received. Was that true?
That's not true. There were a small number of portion markings on, I think, 3 of the documents.
Secretary Clinton said, I did not email any classified material to anyone on my email. There is no classified material. Was that true?
There was classified material emailed.
Secretary Clinton said she used just one device. Was that true?
She used multiple devices during the 4 years of her term as Secretary of State.
Secretary Clinton said all work-related emails were returned to the State Department. Was that true?
No, we found work-related emails, thousands, that were not returned.
Secretary Clinton said her lawyers read every one of the emails and were overly inclusive. Did her lawyers read the email content individually?
No.
Here was reaction. Fox News contributors Ebony Williams and the host of Justice Judge Jeanine Pirro. Okay, well, first of all, she didn't wipe it clean with a cloth. She used bleach bit. If that doesn't prove criminal intent, I don't know. By the way, it wasn't one device. We now find out it's 13 to 14 devices.
Yes.
Okay, and they smashed them with a hammer. Mm-hmm. How did James Comey not come up with an indictment here?
You know, as you know, Jim is a friend of mine, or was when I was the DA. I have never been more disgusted with someone who was a former prosecutor and the way he has covered this up and gone to such great lengths to protect a woman, to protect anyone.
And the document dump on the Friday before Labor Day?
For Jim to say that, you know what, we wanted to get it out as soon as possible, Jim, that is hogwash, and you know it. I've lost all respect for the man. I have. He may be the head of the FBI, but shame on him for what he has done.
Ebony?
Wow. Well, you know, he did say he knew he was going to get this kind of criticism. I will say he came out and he said, look, I knew I was going to take some heat for dumping it on a Friday before a holiday, but he felt like it was transparent. As the judge said, that was his rationale. But he did say there's more to come. And I think we have to pay attention to that. That's very important. I absolutely expect as he gets it ready, we're going to get more and more. And this isn't the end of that.
You know what, though? If you use, wait a minute. I delete emails, you delete emails, we've all deleted something.
Sure.
Okay, I don't use bleach bit. Doesn't that show criminal intent?
Yeah, you know what's the worst, though,
Trey
Sean?
Gowdy said God can't find them after bleach pit.
Yeah, and she knows that, right? Her reliance, though, on the header situation, it's so desperate, and it's factually and legally just unacceptable, and it's insufficient. And she knows this, because you know what? Hillary Clinton's also a lawyer, and she knows that that doesn't cut the mustard.
Hillary Clinton is a lawyer who's danced with prosecutors her whole career.
So what do you do when somebody lies with regularity like this? Lied about Benghazi, lies all with... basically, what do you do when 40% of the country, you can have her on video popping somebody in the head, with a gun and at point-blank range, and they'll still vote for her.
And you know what, Sean? That is a sad part of this. Hillary Clinton has lied so often and so much that the American public is immune to it. I mean, they don't think it matters anymore. But what they don't seem to understand is that we cannot have a leader who lies to us continuously for her own benefit, for money and for power.
Judge,
You're in a dangerous
place. I agree, Judge, that people don't care. I think people know she's a liar. People say
why would you vote for a liar for president?
Because many people say they're choosing between someone they don't like and someone they don't trust. Now, I'm not going to judge that decision, but that's what a lot of people are telling me.
Who are you voting for?
My secret, Sean. That's why we have private.
But the woman needs to be
I've been honest about that.
This woman destroyed evidence after a congressional
subpoena.
If
I did this and you were a prosecutor,
I would have been in. Given me money and I would have still indicted you.
Yeah, that's true. I did donate to you when you were running. I did. It was money well spent because I got to yell at you at a dinner. All right, and coming up next tonight, right here on Hannity.
I have been somewhat heartened by the number of articles recently pointing out the quite disparate treatment of Trump and his campaign compared to ours.
Hillary whining, complaining the media is not being tough enough on Trump, but on her? Seriously, they're her biggest campaign contributor. Larry Kudlow, Austin Goolsbee, they weigh in. And then later tonight, Hillary in an interview on Israeli TV claiming ISIS is praying to Allah for Donald Trump to become president. Wow, where's the outrage? Will she apologize? Dr. Sebastian Gorka, he's here with reaction and much more tonight on Hannity. And welcome back to Hannity Show. Just hours after sitting down with Matt Lauer for a commander-in-chief forum earlier today, Hillary Clinton took questions from the press where she made a point to whine and complain about the press's unfair coverage. Now, wait a minute. They are her #1 campaign contributor. Watch this.
I have been somewhat heartened by the number of articles recently pointing out the quite disparate treatment of Trump and his campaign compared to ours. I don't understand the reasons for it. I find it frustrating, but it's just part of the landscape that we live in, and we just keep forging ahead.
Pretty unbelievable. Now, today, many members of the liberal mainstream media have been critical of poor Matt Lauer. Why? Because he asked Clinton a tough question, but important questions like, what about the email server? And does that disqualify you? Really tough. Here now is former Obama economic advisor Austin Goolsbee and the author of this terrific new book, JFK and the Reagan Revolution, A Secret History of American Prosperity. My old friend Larry Kudlow. By the way, it's an honor to have you back.
You're terrific.
Okay.
Thank you,
Sean.
So
I've just got my copy, but this is what I know. That JFK and Reagan both lowered the top marginal tax rates in the course of Reagan's presidency, 70 to 28%. And lo and behold, unlike Obama, the first president that will never reach 3% GDP growth in any given year, we had prosperity and jobs and success and increased revenues to the government. We can do it again.
We can do it again. We should do it again. It's one of the reasons why I wrote the book with Brian Dimitrovich. Look, JFK, the Democrat, okay, with a Republican Treasury Secretary, knocked down tax rates by 30% across the board.
Rising tide.
91%, a rising tide. He also argued, and was proven right, that not only would the economy boom, which it did at 5%, but the tax cut revenues would pay for themselves. That came true. Roll the clock forward, bad economy, Reagan comes in, uses the JFK tax cut model.
Thank you.
We have quotes
People
on that.
need to hear this.
So this is not, Reagan the Republican, Kennedy the Democrat.
And it works.
It's exactly the supply side model to spur growth. It's exactly what we need today.
All right, let me throw out the numbers that poor Austin, because he's responsible in part for the bad economy. So this is what we have after 8 years.
Not in part, completely, Sean.
Yeah,
You said it's
this
completely.
Is what we've got.
Now I only get
We've
half
got
the
1 in
credit.
5 American families without a single person working, the lowest labor participation rate since the 1970s, the worst recovery since the 40s, the lowest home ownership rate in 51 years, 12 more million Americans since your buddy Obama's president on food stamps, 8 million more Americans in poverty, and he will accumulate more debt than every other president before him combined. That's your legacy and your record. Own it.
I feel
now,
bad for you,
listen
Sean.
to his excuse making. He's going to blame Bush any second now. Go ahead.
I'm not. But when you say these statistics, you insinuate that we have had a steady trend downward over that whole time. And that's completely wrong. We had a steep down in the first 2 years as we were in recession. And since then, basically every measure you cited has been improving.
And the first president never to hit 3% GDP growth for a single year of his presidency. That's your guy.
Well,
more debt than every other president before him combined.
We have had a tortoise recovery, not a hare. We didn't hit the fastest year, but we are now in the longest recovery of private sector job growth.
The worst
on
recovery
record
since
in
the
United
40s,
States.
Larry.
Right. Austin Goolsbee is a great friend of mine.
No, that's not true anymore.
It is true, Austin. Across the board,
It's
in
not
terms of
true
GDP,
anymore.
this is the worst economic expansion since World War II. I just wanted to say it. Austin is a good friend, okay? Here's the thing, Austin. You can go back to Obama or you can go back to 2000. You see stuff, jobs, wages, business investment, real wages, as I just said, productivity, all this has not grown in 15-plus years, okay? W is responsible for part of it. I think Obama is responsible for a lot of it. You and I disagree on this, but Austin, I'll just say one economic lesson here on policy. Big government spending, which was the Obama policy in 2009, 10, and later, didn't work. It didn't work. So if it didn't work, and we look at the numbers are lousy, why not try something different? Like Kennedy, Reagan, tax rate reduction, at least business tax rate reduction, Austin.
Well, look, Larry and I are old friends, and we're both growth guys, and that's why we have always gotten along. All I will say is, if you think cutting taxes for high-income people and corporations is a magic elixir for growth, then you got to explain why, when George Bush did that, did it not work?
Wait a minute.
And why, if you look in Europe at countries that have very low corporate tax rates, why are they growing so slow?
If we would do two things, and I want Larry to weigh in on this first because I trust him a lot more in economics than you, Austin.
Guys.
But if we would allow the multinational corporations that cannot bring not millions, billions, trillions of dollars back to this country, and incentivize them to build factories and manufacturing centers here because we bring them in at a cheap rate, and we expand coal mining, drilling, fracking, and become energy independent. Would those two things alone have a dramatic impact, and cutting taxes as Donald Trump has said?
Yes, Trump has the most fabulous business tax cut, 15% for large and small companies, immediate cash expensing, and good repatriation to bring those overseas dollars home. I believe if he wins and he gets that through, the economy jumps to 5% economic growth.
I agree with you.
I think that's where that's going to go. Austin, you believe in corporate tax reform. Look, how about this? One last one.
I believe in corporate tax reform, but not the Trump's.
We're running out of time.
Trump's version is a.
All right, you know Kevin
Trump's
has
version
it of
is
AI.
a $10 trillion tax cut.
That's not true. It's all being
yes, it
altered.
is.
It's not true, and we've already said it once. It's coming back again next week. You're going to see much different numbers. But look, the best way to raise wages, okay, let's talk about middle-income wage earners. The best way to raise wages is to slash the business tax rates for large and small companies. That has been proven. It's done research, academics. That's the best way to go about it.
There's a different view that says...
All right, so let me just say... Larry's right and Austin's wrong. And Austin,
when are you going to bet me
one of the smartest economists in the country confirming I'm right and you're wrong.
Actually, Sean's on a roll.
You're not confident.
Sean's got this whole analysis down right.
I do. And you know what? Kennedy and Reagan were right. Great book. Coming up next tonight on Hannity.
The jihadists see this as a great gift. They are saying, oh, please, Allah, make Trump president of America.
Wow. Clinton is saying the terrorists, they're praying to Allah for Trump to be elected president. Dr. Sebastian Gorka weighs in next. And welcome back to Hannity. So Hillary Clinton, during an interview with an Israeli news agency, said that ISIS terrorists are literally praying to Allah that Trump becomes president. Really? Watch this.
Trump has made Islam and Muslims part of his campaign. And basically, Matt Olson argues that the jihadists see this as a great gift. They are saying, oh, please, Allah, make Trump president of America. So I'm not interested in giving aid and comfort to their evil ambitions. I want to defeat them.
Joining us now with reaction, author of Defeating Jihad, The Winnable War, our friend Dr. Sebastian Gorka. Okay, so let me get this straight. So ISIS it prefers the guy that says he's going to bomb the living out of them. ISIS prefers the guy that says radical Islam, not the person that's in denial about it. And ISIS prefers the guy that would never give the Iranians, the #1 state sponsor of terror, $150 billion and the ability to pursue nuclear weapons. I don't buy that. What are your thoughts?
Sean, aren't you worried that Hillary Clinton knows what kind of prayers the jihadis are praying?
Yeah, that kind of is somewhat nerve-wracking. Yeah, a little bit. Now that you point it out, yeah.
Yeah, so let's get the facts right. The presidency of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton was a godsend to ISIS, literally. When he came into office, there was no such thing as ISIS. There was Al-Qaeda in Iraq, which was a dysfunctional franchise branch of Al-Qaeda. When we pulled our troops out, when we declared victory by withdrawing, that's when the story of ISIS began. When we declared the red lines in Syria that weren't red lines, when we decided to have our disastrous policy that was Hillary Clinton's policy in Libya.
So she's saying this to obfuscate from what is the truth and what is reality, and that is that she voted for a war she said is a mistake. She pulled out and gave the land and created an opening for ISIS to emerge and to have the financial resources through oil to go forward with their destruction and their caliphate.
Yeah, it's very important that your viewers understand there has never been a modern jihadi organization as powerful as ISIS. ISIS has recruited more than 80,000 fighters. It has affiliates. According to the National Counterterrorism Center of Barack Obama's government, it has fully operational affiliates in 18 countries around the world, including places as far away from Iraq as Afghanistan. This is an organization that holds territory in Iraq, Syria, Libya, and even Nigeria in West Africa in the form of Boko Haram. And this is an organization that is crucifying and decapitating people right now as you are recording your show, Sean.
All right, Dr. Gorka, always on point. Thank you so much, sir. Appreciate it. When we come back, we need your help. A very important question of the day. Straight ahead. And time for our question of the day. So is it time for more journalists, by the way, don't hold your breath, to start asking Hillary Clinton tough questions. She did give a press conference, first one in, 280 days, 16 questions, 6 minutes, not one about her lying, not one about the email server scandal. Yeah, I think it's time. But we want to hear from you. Go to Facebook.com/Sean Hannity, @Sean Hannity on Twitter. Let us know what you think. That's all the time we have left this evening. As always, thank you for being with us. We will see you, hopefully, back here tomorrow night.